Today we're going to talk a little bit about milk access and how to understand your milk access table. This is an example milk access table, and it can be broken out into 3 sections. There's your 3 sections. The first section is for those fresh cows where you really want to encourage visits. So those are all the cows right now in this example in between day 0 and 30 days in milk. The next section is for the majority of your herd. So this is everyone who's over 30 days in milk and everyone who is earlier than 14 days before dry off. And this third group is 14 days before dry off until dry off. This is where you really want to cut back their visits so that you can dry them off smoothly. Now it's time to understand the rows of the milk access table. To start, we'll talk about the minimum number of milkings. So the minimum number of milkings is no matter what a cow is milking, they are able to get milked this many times in one day. So for the 0 to 30 days in this milk access table, they would be able to get milked 4 times a day. In between the 30 days and before 14 days of dry off, they would have access to be milked 2.5 times a day, no matter what their production was. And before dry off, 1.8 times per day. Then it becomes an or statement. So there is a maximum ceiling of milkings, so no matter what a cow is milking, they cannot have access more than 5 times per day if they're below 14 days before dry off because of those 2 sections of the milk access table. Anyone who's really close to dry off gets a maximum of 2 milkings per day in this milk access table so that we can really cut back milkings so that their milk drops before dry off and they're not over milking. The optimum expected milk yield per milking, you take how much they're expected to milk that day and you divide it by that number. And that is how you get how many milkings they have access to per day. And then the minimum and maximum are the absolutes. So if someone is a fresh cow, they have access if they're expected to milk 8 kilos at that milking or 13 at that milking for the rest of the herd. The best way to understand this is through some examples and some calculations. So the first cow we're going to talk about is a cow that's 25 days in milk and she's milking 40 kilos. The way this is going to work is we're going to find where she is in the milk access table first. So she's 25 days in milk, so she's in that first section of the milk access table. She milks 40 kilos. So the way it'll work is we would divide 40 by 8 kilos, which is the optimum yield per milking. And that gives us 5 milkings per day. Either way, if she was over 5 milkings, because she would only get 5 because that's the absolute max, which means she has access to get milked every 4.8 hours. A cow that's 60 days in milk will be in that middle section of the milk access table, milking 40 kilos. So what you'll do is you'll take 40 kilos and you'll divide it by 13 kilos because that's the optimum milking per milk yield. What we'll get is 3.1 milkings per day. So that's in the middle range, so that means she has access to get milked every 7.7 hours. A cow 200 days in milk, 120 days before dry off, is also going to be in that middle section, milking 30 kilos. So we'll take 30 kilos and divide it by 13, and we get actually a number that's below 2.5 milkings per day. That means she still has access 2.5 times because that's the minimum number of milkings. So that's every 9.6 hours. A cow 70 days in milk will also be in that middle section and milking 70 kilos. Divide the 70 by 13. You get a number that is greater than 5 milkings per day. So she would have 5 milkings per day because she's at that maximum number and have access to be milked every 4.8 hours. So when you're making any changes to milk access, it's really important you find out what cows it's going to affect and you find out where they're going to be. So do some example calculations, find out what their milk yield per milking is before making any changes, and always talk to your local FMS advisor. I hope you understand a little bit more about the milk access table now. Thank you.